Hello, everyone. My name is Zhatt, and welcome to the first podcast, the unnamed podcast, with myself, Zhatt, or James. And I'm here with Dan and Tristan from the Sandbox Games database website.
Hello.
How's it going, guys?
Hi there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So first off, I guess, tell me about your website here, because it's going to be on my channel, and not everyone will necessarily know who you guys are.
Okay, yeah, well, great. Thanks very much for having us here today. Our website is Sandbox Games DB, and we kind of set it up really as a way to kind of talk about the games that we love playing. And we've got a very specific sort of niche genre that we like, and that is sort of open-ended, open-world games. That includes tycoon games, which is why we're chatting today. Sandbox games, role-playing games, strategy games, Sims, all that sort of stuff. And we've kind of set up a website really where to serve two purposes. Firstly, to give latest news on some of the games that you might not find in the mainstream gaming press, and secondly, as a sort of a discoverability platform, a way where you can kind of look at some of the games in these genres that you like, and then see perhaps related games and find those sort of hidden gems that you might not have heard about, and give them a try, I suppose.
Cool. So
yeah.
Similar, a little like my series Tycoon News, where you're trying to show off new games that not everyone might have seen already, and basically let the smaller developers get a chance.
Definitely, yeah. I think a big problem with indie games is they come with great concepts for games, but getting coverage is always very difficult, and we kind of want to shine a light on those sort of hidden gems, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of them today.
Yeah, I think there's a great thing to be had with indie developers now. I'm starting to see a trend where people are following these indie developers more and less so the big name companies, because I was having a little conversation in the comments of one of my videos with someone about how these indie developers can put a bit more risk out there. They can try something new and different.
Yeah, definitely.
And just sort of see if it works out, because they can just put a few hours into making a prototype, see if people like it. If they do, run a Kickstarter, fund the game, and it just keeps growing from there. They don't have to invest like millions of dollars into advertising and a bunch of different developers and the publisher.
Yeah, definitely.
And then figure out if it works.
I mean, they've got much less risk associated, haven't they? So they can come up with more experimental titles that might not need to appeal to mass audiences. So I think definitely that's where you get the kind of nice, innovative little gems.
Yeah, and the audience will go out there and find the game, which is the nice thing, and that's kind of the fun thing when you find a new game that really appeals to you. It's really exciting that it's there.
And yeah, it's usually word of mouth advertising too. So you get your friends saying, "Hey, check out this game," and it feels a lot more like it'd be something you would like, because if your friend's suggesting it, than if some big advertising company put up an ad on the TV or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So for your website, you said it's a database, but it's also going to be like news and possibly have some videos on it.
Yeah, so we're hoping for each game that we have in the database to be sort of to collate all the information about it. So resources, websites that relate to the game, wikis, and also news articles. So if you look on a game page, you can chart back and see the progression of the game through the articles we upload, and then also some videos, so you get an idea all in one place.
Oh, cool. So it'll have a bit of a history to it too, so you're going to see where the game came from.
Yeah, like a good example is Elite Dangerous, which has recently been released in December. We kind of charted that right from when it was announced on Kickstarter back several years ago now, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we followed it ourselves.
Yeah, and then it was one of the early games when we first launched. We've only been going for a few months now, our website, but we kind of charted the kind of through the different stages of development, with new features being added and all that sort of stuff, right up till launch. And then we've done about how the game is at launch and that sort of stuff. So you can really kind of track that sort of thing. Yeah.
Cool. So you guys been playing the game?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's really good.
I was really tempted to buy it for like 3 days straight. I'm like, oh, should I get it? Should I not? Because it's a little expensive. Whoops, excuse me, a little expensive for me right now.
Yeah. I mean, I bought it. I bought a preview edition, and it was very expensive, and I'm not sure it was worth that initially. I think it's a weird one for me, Elite Dangerous, because I'm used to playing other space sims that are a lot more fleshed out, have got a lot more content in them. But what I do like about Elite Dangerous is it's kind of, they seem to have started it on very strong foundations, and now they just need to go away and add stuff to it. And hopefully that's what they'll do, and I'm sure it's the sort of game that would benefit from expansions and add-ons and all sorts of stuff. At the moment it's just a little bit like, well, I'm shipping goods back and forth, and I've done that 1,000 times, and what else is there? Do you know what I mean?
That's the big reason I didn't really get into it right now, is because I didn't really feel like just, you know, shipping some stuff here, shooting a guy, shipping some stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems a little repetitive, a little bland.
And
despite them saying that, oh, there's thousands and thousands of systems of it, but they all look exactly the same.
Yeah, and I come from a background of have you ever played the X games, X Terran Conflict? X?
Not really.
Yeah,
I should, but I haven't.
In those sort of games, you can control multiple ships. You can build factories and build production empires and all sorts of things. It's just a bit more like, you know, a bit more. There's a bit more stuff, a bit more content to it. So I think Elite will get there, and it's very. The flight simulation part of it is fun, and it takes some getting used to, but it is fun. And I think just over time, hopefully they'll just add more stuff to it, and it will get there.
Well, the obvious comparison, and the game that I've been following for quite a while now, is Star Citizen.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to get into a big flame war here, because I know there's a bit of animosity with some fans between the two, but they're like coming at it from the complete opposite direction. Like, here's a bunch of cool things you can do in the game, but we don't know how to make it all work together yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw, didn't they release recently like something like Arena Commander?
Yeah, that's the one that you can play right now. I'm having a lot of fun just flying the ship around. It feels great.
And is that the entire game, or is that just sort of one?
That is just simply a test for their spaceship flying mechanics.
Right. Okay.
They're also soon going to have, I don't know what it's going to be called, but the first-person shooter module.
Right.
Where it's going to be completely separate. It's like, here's us just testing the first-person shooter side of things, and then slowly they're going to merge those together so you can get sort of what they're calling the what's it called? Well, the open universe, the one you can actually fly around in and do stuff. And so it's going to slowly piece together, and they're going to see how it all works. They sort of have an idea of what they want to be in the game, but they still have to build that base to make it all fit together.
So they're doing it modularly, which is really interesting as a way for development. I really like that.
It works great for well, they had their Kickstarter, but it works great for any sort of crowdfunding, because they can release these chunks and let people try them out and play the game bit by bit. Because it's still going to be like 2 years before the whole game is like completely together.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one to watch. Definitely. We'll be definitely posting stuff about that.
I mean, we've put some things up about it already, but it's just interesting to see all the different elements, and then what it will be like when it actually comes together.
So interesting concept that we've been talking about is what exactly is well, on my end, what is a tycoon game? But I guess overall we can talk about what like a sandbox game is in general. Yeah. Because it's not a specific thing. I mean, a sandbox means it's a place where you can do whatever you want, but technically you can do that in any game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I like to see on your website you've listed tycoon, strategy, RPG, Sims.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming at it from we're coming at it that sandbox isn't a genre as such. It's a component of a game, rather.
It's a way of life.
Rather than a specific genre, it's more of a component that exists within a game. So one of the things that we've actually been working on is how do you kind of classify these games, and what is a sandbox game and what isn't. And we started to work on an algorithm, didn't we, Tristan?
Yeah, I've never actually thought of it that way before. That it's like a component of the the game, where it's like, oh, this is a cool game, but it could use some more sandbox.
Yeah.
Bring up the sandbox level.
That's it.
And it sounds a little ridiculous at first, but it actually makes a lot of sense, where you can just like give people more freedoms, give more options to build and put things. You can probably slap that onto a lot of different games.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, let's take some examples. Like if you look at like a game, a mainstream game like Far Cry or the Skyrim Elder Scrolls games, they have a certain level of sandboxness, let's call it. And in those games, there are certain things that you can do, and there are certain things that you can't do, and certain things that you must do. So, for example, you've got a main storyline, and that's obviously one way to progress through the game. But you've got on the other side of things, you've got this kind of character development, which is pretty open-ended in the Elder Scrolls games. You kind of you grow depending on what you just decide to do as your character. So that's quite a sandboxy feature, if you like. And we kind of have been working towards finding a way of classifying a game based on all of those features. So how open world is it? How random is the world? Is it something that's been handcrafted, or has it been procedurally generated? And we've got all these different, we've got like, what do we have? Like hundreds of these different classifications that determine how sandbox a game is. And what we came to realize was that actually there are a huge amount of games out there now that give players freedom, even in small amounts, that mean that it has an element of sandboxness in it. And that's kind of why we've kind of not restricted ourselves to a specific genre and opened it up to this wider range of games, really.
For me, I mean, this definition is quickly changing even just through this conversation. But when I think sandbox games, I think very literal, like big box of sand, you can move things around, but that's about it. Like Minecraft.
Minecraft is
you literally pick up blocks of dirt, put it somewhere else, and then that's kind of the main part of the game.
Yeah.
But I can see how, like you can take that idea, and it's anywhere that you can sort of change the environment, change your character.
Yeah.
But it's hard to draw those lines. Like, I mean, for me, an RPG, like if I think like Final Fantasy, that's not a sandbox game to me. That has like a very defined storyline. You have to go from here to there, and you kind of need to max out your character at this point. There's only so much play that you have. Yeah,
absolutely. But then if you take it on the other side of things, if you look at a game like World of Warcraft, that is an RPG. Okay, it's an online RPG.
True.
But where does it start and where does it end? Well, there isn't really an end. So that is a much more sandboxy game than Final Fantasy, which is why we couldn't really exclude RPGs as a genre from our website.
Right.
Because
it falls under there, at least some of them.
Yeah, it's sort of a scale, I suppose, at the end of the day. You know, this game might be 90 out of 100 sandbox, say, and this game might be 10, but it's difficult to sort of go, well, this is the cutoff point, and this is where we say this is no longer a sandbox game.
World of Warcraft is an interesting example, because I was going to say, like, compared to Final Fantasy, that World of Warcraft, it's open world, but so are the Final Fantasy games. You can go wherever you want.
Yeah.
Usually. But then I was thinking, okay, well, Final Fantasy has a particular storyline, and it's like, well, World of Warcraft has a bunch of different storylines that you can follow.
Yeah.
So but you have the choice of which ones you can follow. So it kind of just comes down to that, right? Like,
the defining thing, really, I suppose, is how much freedom a player has at any one point in the game to make a decision on what he's going to do in that game. And the more freedom he has, the more sandbox it tends to be. So a game like Minecraft, at any point in the game, you're not being forced.
It's very sandbox.
Yeah, you've always got something else that you.
So it's kind of a sliding scale. It's not like this is a sandbox game. This isn't.
No,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like you say. We was trying to work on giving a game a score, like how sandbox it is, rather than saying it is or it isn't a sandbox game. And I think that makes it a lot more interesting as well, because games that you wouldn't actually think of as being kind of in that region are, and then it kind of opens up your horizons on.
So how would you score something like that? I mean, like, you can't count how many options you have.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I mean, we were thinking of coming up with some kind of algorithm where it would have and I don't know, several questions, dozens of questions. Mm-hmm. Is the world procedurally generated? The questions like that, and then we sort of tick, and if it is, it gives 5 points or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and then
that's
it comes out with a numerical score at the end.
Yeah,
and then
so. In like our example, you can say like how many storylines are there to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is the story optional? Can you avoid it entirely? That's another.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
that could be a long questionnaire still.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, it would take a long time to complete for each game in the database. That's for sure. But
it's like going up to someone saying, like, "How free are you? How much freedom do you have?"
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, even within something like tycoon games, there's a big variety of how sandboxy they are, really, in terms of, you know, what you're setting out to achieve.
Something I keep running into with my channel is I want to put a game on there, and I have to keep thinking to myself, like, does this fit my definition of tycoon game?
Yeah.
Like, what is a tycoon game? Honestly, tycoon... I kind of want to make a separate video on this. I mean, tycoon, I've actually looked at the history. Like, tycoon is a Japanese word that comes from basically a lord.
Okay.
I think it's a bit more complicated than that. But they're like basically a knight in Japan. They control an area of land.
Right.
So basically it's a commander, someone who controls things. And when it was adopted into English, it very shortly meant kind of that, someone who just controlled stuff. It was actually applied to like politicians quite a few times.
Right.
But it very quickly became basically a businessman who controls a lot of different companies and has a lot of power. And so the games are basically business simulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even that definition is very broad because, like, SimCity is a business simulation, technically.
Right.
You're running the business, even if it's a, I guess technically not, because it's you're a mayor and that's a civic thing. But you know what I mean. You
still have a budget.
Yeah, you have a budget, and you got to take care of all these different
resources
and things.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people might say that's not a tycoon game because the main part of the game is to build stuff, and you're not really doing the business side is just sort of added on to that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I suppose it comes down to the question of how far would you go? Is there a cutoff point, or can you say that there are elements within SimCity that are tycoon-like, I suppose? Well,
what you're the database guys, you might know this. What's like the first game that like used the tycoon?
Well, there's a question.
I'm thinking Roller Coaster
Tycoon. I mean, that was...
but that was after Transport Tycoon, wasn't it?
It was after Transport Tycoon.
Yeah, Transport Tycoon was before that.
Yeah, that was early 90s.
I mean, that's the most obvious, like, I'm running a business.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of different areas because you got the trains, the car, vehicles, airplanes.
Yeah, and it's a very sort of I mean, it's a great game, but let's say transportation is a very sort of a mundane business, isn't it? It's not like it's not something exciting like a theme park would be. But yeah, even though the game is great, they're focused on something that is very business-like, whereas a theme park that you're building is it's something a bit more something like an aspirational goal, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can see sort of the theme has a big difference in sort of how to view it, but in the end, I mean, you're building some stuff for vehicles to go on.
Yeah.
And whether it's like people walking through a park or a roller coaster going a track or trains going over track and people going on a bus, the mechanics are kind of the same, where you have to make money from that.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
maybe a definition of a tycoon game is any game where you can go bust, where you can run out of money.
Yeah. That's an interesting definition. I'm trying to think of a counter playing devil's advocate here, but nothing's coming to mind right away.
I mean, because the one of the games that I always think of when I think of a tycoon game is capitalism. I mean, it says it is what it says on the tin, really.
I don't know if a lot of people know that game now, but that was one I played a lot. Capitalism Plus.
Yeah, and Capitalism 2 as well. Yeah, I mean, in that game, you're literally starting a company, and it is your job to make as much money as you can, really, isn't it?
And it's definitely a tycoon game because you can do whatever. You can build, like, it's a manufacturing game, so you can produce chickens, you can produce beer, you can produce clothing.
Yeah, harvest, mine resources, and
you get to choose if that's literally under all the same brand name, or you can split them under different brand names per item, or you can have like umbrella corporations for sort of different groups of brands, and that changes how the customers view your product.
Yeah.
Because someone might not want to buy chicken from the same guy that also produces oil, and they might think like, "What's going on here? Is that produced in the same plant?" But they don't mind buying chicken from someone who produces eggs, so you can make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see that as like, and is that before or after Transport Tycoon?
I think that was after.
Really?
Yeah.
Transport Tycoon goes so far back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, when I first looked at it and started playing Open Transport Tycoon, I didn't realize that it went back to the early 90s. Like it's ridiculous how sort of almost ahead of its time it was.
It was certainly the first sort of tycoon business game that I ever played when I was a kid growing up. I think I've still got the paper manual around, like,
oh really?
somewhere. Yeah,
should scan that in.
Yeah, and I think in the version that I had, it was you could actually switch the tile set, so you was building on an alien landscape.
Oh yeah, and there's like the toy one too. I'm not sure if that was in the original.
I think the toy one was like the deluxe version that came out later.
Oh yeah, TTD.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's definitely an old one, isn't it? Transport Tycoon. Yeah,
it is.
It's very old, yeah.
I've been corrected on this one before, so I'm probably going to get it wrong again. But Chris Sawyer, the guy who made the game, what I understand is he basically made the entire thing by programming it directly in BASIC or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
No idea.
No idea.
But it's like, it was crazy at the time, and this sort of game might not have been able to exist if you didn't basically like hard code it that way. And I don't remember. I think he did a bunch of the graphics as well.
Yeah.
Basically, he was like a savant at the time. Either way,
he did quite a bit of it, didn't he? I think, and then didn't he? There was some sort of split or something. Did he? I don't know. With the Roller Coaster Tycoon series, at some point he did.
Well, he worked on those too, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he
I
had
think he
something
did
to do
one
with Elite
and
as well.
2. Sorry?
I think he had something to do with the early Elite, didn't he?
Really?
Yeah, I'm just trying to Google him now to see what I can get up. I'm sure he did something to do with them. I might be getting confused with Sid Meier, because didn't Sid Meier own some shares in the company that makes Elite or something like that?
Sure.
Not sure. Yeah, that's
Elite
something.
Plus. I see Elite Plus on his credits.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Man of many talents.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was just Sandbox king at the time, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's still around too, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah. So it's saying here, Transport Tycoon was 1994. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He worked on the most recent Transport Tycoon for mobile.
Oh yeah, of course.
They just took the old game and put it in the new one, into not the new ones, but put it on mobile.
Yeah, I've
I
seen
think
that.
it looks almost the same as like the original.
Yeah, I think the gameplay is slightly different though. I think it's more scenario based rather than
Oh, okay.
open. I haven't actually played it myself, but I did some reading about it.
But yeah, Transport Tycoon. I mean, when I think of that game, I think of it as kind of the tycoon game.
Yeah,
Like we're talking about, it's about as far back as I can really think
definitely.
in this genre. It's the game I sort of grew up on that got me into a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I need to do some research, but I think A Train actually goes back farther.
Oh,
It's a
really?
Japanese game.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I mean, and they're still bringing out new versions of A-Train.
Yeah, I think A Train 9 is the most recent one that I previewed on my channel.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah, so
And I wouldn't be surprised if he was inspired off of that. But I'm just looking at the dates here. Yeah, because Transport Tycoon was 1994, 1995, while A Train is 1985.
wow, that
That
is
was-
a big jump.
Aging myself here, that was like when I was born.
Yeah.
Although, just doing some Wikipediaing right now, I think SimCity, like classic,
Yeah.
is around the same period.
It's SimCity's going right back. Was it originally? It was originally
1989 release
on Mac. Am I right in thinking that?
I think it was DOS first.
Let's have a look.
It's
1989.
So we're building a bit of a timeline here. Looks like
Yeah.
A-Train inspired SimCity, which inspired Tycoon.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
there's-
on the Mac. Most of the releases weren't kind of, so it was out on the Mac originally.
I remember from school there being a way you could. For some reason, SimCity was on one of the computers, and everyone always wanted to sit on that computer.
Yeah, I remember that. Actually, I remember getting mad at people who were playing the game because I'm like, you don't need to put like pipes on every tile. You just need to connect it. You don't need to connect this with power. And it's like I was that particular at even like 5 years old. Already trying to give people tutorials on how to play a game.
Yeah, started young.
I guess so. I think A-Train's an interesting series because a lot of people who are really into these games, at least on like North America or even just the West in general, don't really know about this series,
About
how far back it goes.
Yeah, about the
Yeah.
A-Train series.
I had no idea it went back. It had such 30 years.
And it's interesting because it even has a lot of like I don't quite know how to say it, but I mean when you play the game you can sort of see the Japanese perspective kind of on top of it versus like a North American one, where a North American one is like, okay, I need to connect all these things, make as much money as possible, and just use the resources wherever I can, right?
Yeah.
Well, this comes from a completely different perspective, and it's actually hard to get your head around it at first because you need to build the infrastructure first, even get the resources in. Money's not that important of a thing because you have a ton of it already.
Okay.
And the goal is to basically just grow the city off of the resources. So it's a lot more logistics.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So you're trying to grow the city rather than grow your company as such.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have all of the information on this, but what I understand is this is something that actually happens in Japan where they'll build basically a train track across nowhere.
Right.
And then put some shops at the stations.
Yeah.
People start going to work at the shops, and then people start shopping at the shops and build their houses next to it. And then they'll build like hotels and things. And eventually they've basically built and owned this town. That they're
Okay.
actually, the trains are basically growing the country.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a brilliant idea for a game, isn't it?
But there's
And
that element in an open TTD as well, isn't there? If you bring enough people and goods to a town, then the town begins to grow.
it will grow, yes. I think that, yeah, that idea is taken. But you can't start a new town.
No.
It has to be, it either pops up randomly or you have to go into the editor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very different sort of point of view.
Try
That's something. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm going to have a go at that. That
I
sounds
wanna
brilliant.
play.
You've got a video of it, haven't you, on your channel? So
Yeah, A-Train 9, I think. But even if you want to go back and try to find a version of like some of their more original ones,
yeah,
Yeah.
the
even
classic
like the
ones.
original one, maybe like 2 or I think 5 or something was a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
That was I played a lot,
Okay.
or even 3. I think 3 is spread all over the place. But anyways, that's something I actually. Going sort of off topic here is something I would like to see in something like a SimCity or any sort of builder game is like a reason to be there.
Yeah.
Is there a resource I need to dig up? Is there like some really nice tourism here that people want to come here for a reason? I just need to manage that instead of just like trying to artificially bring people to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was something that was almost flirted with the latest version of SimCity. You sort of you had limited deposits of coal, or it was a very pretty place, and cruise ships came down. But I'm not sure if that was fully realized in.
It was still a little artificial. It's like I happen to be building a city here, and then there's stuff I can use to make that city better. It's not like the main reason people are going there. I mean, that's how a town pops up in real life. It's like there's the gold rush. Everyone wants to go up north where it's not very nice because it's muddy and cold. And then the town pops up, they dig up all the gold, and then once the economy goes away, they either have to figure out a new way to keep it going, or the town just collapses.
Well, they disappear.
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah, I mean,
knows. Yeah.
so many communities. over here in the UK that are built around mines, and the mines stop working, and kind of a lot of people lose their purpose. We're getting a bit dark here, aren't we?
Itself.
Yeah.
Let's make a game called Mine City.
Yeah. There you go.
Pop-up town.
What do you do when the coal runs out?
Yeah.
New Kickstarter. We'll set that one up.
While we're talking about Kickstarter, you've got one going on, haven't you? Am I right in thinking?
Yeah. I actually just launched that earlier this month for tutorials for tycoon games. And speaking of OpenTTD, that's where I'm going to be starting. The idea is to have basically like a lesson plan of tutorial videos for the range of games, starting with like some really beginner stuff, like how to even just like install the game. Like OpenTTD, you have issues with
that took me a while.
The graphics, getting that into the game and choosing if you want like the real ones or the free open source ones.
Map as well. You've got to do a bit of extra work, haven't you, on a map?
Yeah. And then all the way up to like how to get the most advanced system with like these roundabouts and multi-tracked trained signals. Like I don't even know how to get into it right now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, and basically, if someone watches the entire series, they would go from like absolute newbie having no idea this game even existed to being able to build these systems.
Yeah.
And I want to do it in a way where it's broken up into chapters so people can just watch the parts they want.
Yeah.
So even if people are familiar with the game, they can drop in if they don't understand a certain mechanic or something like that.
Yeah, or they can just skip all the newbie stuff, like they already have the game installed.
That's really interesting, actually, because we've, me and Tristan today have been playing a new game that we've been trying, Endless Legend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Civ-style game, in case you've not heard of it. It's set in a sort of a fantasy world, and you're setting up a civilization and expanding out and all the usual kind of Civ mechanics. And it plays very similar to the latest Civilization, isn't it, Tristan?
Yeah.
But there were some aspects of it that we just weren't explained in the game at all. And we ended up having to tab out, spend a few minutes kind of looking around the forums, and I think we bundled across a Steam forum that explained this particular mechanic.
But it would have been nice to have just a short video tutorial where we could have gone, oh, that's it, great, back in, rather than having to trawl through.
Google that one thing, right?
Yeah.
That concept that you're looking up. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think
my friend bought me that game for Christmas. We just started loading. He played a couple games. We loaded up, and he was just like, "Yeah, do this, do that." But there were so many things. Like, what the heck is what does floating stone do?
Yeah,
a lot of weirdly named things.
Very fun though, isn't it?
It is.
We've had a good session today, and we're big Civ fans, and yeah, we've been playing it all day. It's brilliant. It's really good fun.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is there's a version called Endless Space, I think.
Yeah,
I think they did that first.
That was before.
Yeah,
that was a 4X space game.
I'm so much more used to space games and science fiction in general that I feel like if I just jumped into that, I'd probably figure it out much faster because I sort of understand science fiction concepts.
Yeah.
Well, fantasy is not something I follow a lot, especially since you can make it up anything at all.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm not a huge fantasy fan myself.
He took some persuading. Let's put it that way.
But it was worth it. The gameplay.
Yeah, it is a good game. Yeah, it looks very deep. I have to look into it more myself. But
PC Gamer just recently gave it a design award for 2014, and I can see why. The design of all the menus and stuff is just beautiful.
It looks great.
Yeah, it's really nice, and everything's sort of really, the iconography is really clear, and that's what I mean. There was only literally about 2 concepts that we didn't understand. Because everything else is just clearly kind of explained and well laid out and well thought out. It's really nice, yeah.
I mean, I believe this game is already fairly... people know about it, but I think it's one of those games that people should know about more because it is still a smaller studio. It's not like Civilization.
I think it's only their second game, I think, after Endless Space, yeah.
And to be up to that quality, I didn't even hear about it until basically it was released, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh my god, this is so in depth and looks beautiful. Like, how does a big company like the Civilization, who made Civilization there?
Firaxis.
How can they cannot meet this level? I mean, I shouldn't really say that because I've been playing the new one,
Beyond Earth.
Beyond Earth, and it looks amazing as well.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah,
but it doesn't have that same depth.
No,
and it hasn't changed that much from Civ 5, which I love, but but Beyond Earth just kind of feels. I'd rather do it with real life emperors than in space.
I hear that a lot. I'm actually the complete opposite because I like science fiction that much. Where I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I know what happened in real history. I want to try my own thing. I want more options.
So between the three of us, we've got a sci-fi fan, a fantasy fan, and a historical fan.
Perfect.
Ideal.
I also actually thinking, comparing like the Endless series to like the Civilization series.
Yeah.
And how deep they are. We're all arguing sort of from the point of view of like, we want more information, we want more detail, we want more depth. But some people are just like, I just want to jump into the game and play it. I don't want to figure out what every resource does.
So would you do like a quick start as part of your tutorial?
Sorry, I meant someone looking at like these games, what they want to buy. Some people just would rather play Civilization because it is just more straightforward and in depth. And I can completely understand that point of view.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to jump right in, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally constantly conflicted when I start a new game where it's like, I just want this to be simple so I can quickly play it and get into it, or I want something that I can really dig my teeth into and get deeper and deeper. But as a grown person who works full time, I only have so much time for these sort of things. Of course.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly thinking, I want to play, what's it called? CCP's
EVE Online.
EVE Online.
Yep.
I want to like be a miner and like a space pirate and learn about the economy and do underhanded trading. And I'm like, well, that's a full-time job right there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
you're being paid for it.
Yeah, I've played it for a few months solid, and then I realized I have to stop. Like, I had to cold turkey cut it off because it was taking over my life. There was a point where like, I can't go out and watch a movie with you guys because I have an online meeting with my fake corporation. Yeah, we have to decide whether we're taking out into zero spec space and all that.
It's one of those that's been on my agenda to come back to. I played it a few years ago now. It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been meaning to come back to it all this time. But like you say, it's just one of those things that I know as soon as I start playing it, it's just going to eat into my time.
I don't know if you guys are like this, but I have an addiction to new games. So I'll see a game, it's like, that's really cool, I want to play this. And I play it for like an hour to a week, and then I'm like on to the next thing already.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's why we've made the website. So hopefully there's a constant feed of new games to be found. And there are hidden gems out there that are constantly being worked on and being developed, but they just never get the kind of the press that they deserve, really. So we're just trying to kind of shine a light on them, really.
And discovering that new game that like fits your genre and your ideals of what you want to see in a game perfectly, that feels great.
Yeah, it feels amazing.
Definitely.
Go play that and have the time of your life.
Yeah. And then move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next one. Yeah, it's like an addiction.
It is.
more.
That next hit.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap this up. So thanks for showing up for this podcast. This is just kind of a pilot. So if you've listeners, I was going to say viewers, but I guess in this case it's listeners out there, enjoy this kind of thing, let us know what you might want to have us talk about next time, or if you want something longer, shorter, or even what to call this.
Suggestions for names welcome.
Because I'd like to do this sort of thing again. This was actually really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks very much for having us. I appreciate it.
So yeah, I want to say thanks to Dan and Tristan over at sandboxgamesdb.com. Go check it out. I might actually be helping them out with some video-age on their
definitely,
website to flush it out a little bit. But yeah, thanks for everyone who tuned in, and we'll catch you all later.
Thank you very much.
Say bye.
Bye.